Next step is to take care of our meta information. So let's do that now. And what we can see here is the anchor tags are green, but they're not always green. So if we go to the author information, this link is gray. But in general, most links in the body or in the text will be green. So we can set that generally. And then we can override that whenever we need to. And that's the advantage to the cascade functionality of CSS. So I will click the magnifying tool and select an anchor and find out that the color, if I go to computed styling, is this right here. So I can paste that in. Color, there we are. And that's looking a lot better. Now we also know though that this text is italic, but that shouldn't be the default. So I don't want to place it within my general styling. Instead, I'm going to override it and only place it within the meta tag. So right here we can say meta A font style italic. Reload, and now that's been made italic. Next, we need to figure out what the font size is. So I'm going to click it again, and here we can see that the font size is 14 pixels. So we'll place that right here because that is going to be specific to this section. Reload the page, that's better. And now these need to be displayed in line. So if we come back, we can see that we are using list items. So I can say meta li display inline. And what that's going to do is make it into a horizontal set, and it will also get rid of any bullets. Next, we need to provide a little breathing room after each one. But also notice, if I zoom in, can you see that the dividers are backslashes? And something you may be tempted to do is right here do something like this, and then reload the page, and sure enough, that seems to work, but that's a very bad practice because this is a separator, it's styling, and it has no purpose within your markup. You'll see people do this often when they're creating navigations. They'll use the pipe character to separate each one. Instead, we're going to use our CSS, and we can use some fun pseudo classes to do this. So I will type meta a colon after, and now we're going to add content after. What content are we adding? A backslash. And now if we load the page, it's going to look a little odd to you. And this is a rarity. So it's very common that a backslash will refer to an escaping. So it's thinking that we're saying this character right here shouldn't be considered the wrapping quotes for this character. It's assuming that we are literally referring to a single quote instead of the closing wrapper. And that's why you can see below it's changed the syntax highlighting. And this is a helpful way that syntax highlighting can point out errors to you. So what do we want to do if we want to say, nope, treat this as an actual backslash? We're going to escape that as well. It's a little odd, but it is a rarity. And now you can see that has been added. Next, we need to provide some breathing room because if I close this out again, it looks like it has some space right there. So why don't we give it some padding, and we'll use the shorthand. And we don't want any padding on the top or bottom, but maybe 10 pixels on the left and right. And now if I reload the page, there's a little more room there. But you know what? I think that's too much. So I'm going to reduce that down to 5. And the next step is, if I zoom in again, notice that it's treating this backslash with the exact same formatting as our anchor tag. So what if we instead apply this content after the list item itself rather than the anchor tag? Reload, and now that's receiving the formatting of the list item and not the anchor tag. Again though, I think that is too much spacing, and also it's the wrong color. Let's figure out what the right color is. Inspect element, and notice here that the original creator is using a span tag. That's okay too. There's lots of ways to skin a cat, remember. And we're going to get the color, which is 999. So we're going to take this right here and say color 999. And also I'm going to reduce the padding to 2 pixels on the left and right. Reload, and that's looking a lot better. The last thing I see now is notice that there is no backslash after the final item right here, but there is for ours right here. We need to get rid of that. So how can we specify that the very last list item should not have anything? We can say meta, get all list items, but then we're going to reduce that to a subset. And now we're only selecting the last child. So that will only get, in this case, the very last list item, whether that's this one or if we added another one. Last child would then select this one. Now we need to say after, and we're going to say content is nothing. So I'm going to set it to that, or we could also say content none. Reload, and now you can see that's disappeared. Good, so this is an excellent example of how we're using CSS to create the dividers. That way, you don't have to return to your markup if you need to change the layout. If you want to make it a pipe, simply change it, and that's going to be updated everywhere.